Hello, wonderful people. You're once again welcome to the King Dems podcast. And today we have with us a very important man from Lagos, Nigeria. He is the CEO of My CFO NG, and he's a man of multiple endeavors. A big welcome, Ajibola Jinadu. How are you today, Ajibola?
I'm very fine, thank you, Ademola. Thanks for having me here, and I really hope to do justice to an ordinary person doing extraordinary thing. I mean, I
Oh,
still
wow.
feel very ordinary, but I'm actually humbled that you actually invited me to this. So looking forward to a very good interaction.
Okay, thank you very much. And of course, me being on gratitude, I am very grateful for you squeezing out time from your very busy schedule. If you know Ajibola, you know he's a very busy man, and to be able to steal some time on his calendar to get him to talk is a very big deal. And it's something I do not take for granted. So, really, let's get to meet you. Who would you say Ajibola Jinadu is? Who are you? Who would you describe yourself as?
Interesting. So, I mean, you put the questions through. I mean, so in preparation for this, and I looked at that question, and I was like, do I know? Do I even know who I am? I mean, it's very. I'll answer it anyway, but to the best of my ability. But actually, what I'm trying to say is that it got me reflecting. Like, yeah. So who really are you? Are you the founder of my CFO NG? Are you an accountant? Are you a father? Are you a husband? Where exactly are you? Are you all of those things are the roles you play, but they who you are, things like that. So really, it's supposed to be a simple question, but then it got me really thinking deeply. But what I would say Ajibola Jinadu is just a simple guy in Lagos. When I say simple, I'm actually very simple. That's you won't find anything complex or anything complex, complicated. I either find a way to simplify it or I just delegate it and all of that. So simple guy, married with two kids. I'm big on family, especially the nuclear kind. Uh, so like because it's still simple, like I just know who is who and all of that. Mostly, I would say I'm an introvert. I I yeah, it's not necessarily a bad thing. Or I know it's not necessarily a bad thing. It doesn't mean I don't have experiences and all of that, but I get my energy from like retreating. I hear extroverts get their energy from going out and all of that. I get my energy from retreating. And when I retreat, I'm reading books or watching movies, doing things like that to energize myself. So, in a simple space, so I don't want to go in all of the professional whatever, but like who I am in my natural self, Ajibola Jinadu is just a simple guy, just trying to get through life.
Oh, wow, interesting. So, I like to ask every guest about their childhood and growing up because, to me, I feel that is a very important phase of life that defines you as a
Mm,
person, right? You
true.
describe yourself as an introvert, as somebody who places a lot of premium on family, values, right?
Mm,
You're also a professional, a consummate professional at that, right? But then I
mm,
like to believe that your childhood, your growing up, your early influences, your early life
mm.
mentors actually did shape you into who you are. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I definitely agree 100%. As in, whoever we are now is just a sum of all our experiences, and our childhood in particular plays a lot. Uh, Psychologists and all these guys, they actually did studies, and who you really are as a person by the time you're 20, 21, it's already formed, and
Mm,
it's really formed in your teenage years. I know. So, my childhood was a mix of fun and me wishing I could go back and do it all over again, especially my
Wow.
secondary school years. So, yeah, I'm first of three kids. My parents. I have a younger brother, a younger sister. So anyway, I mentioned that to just let you know there's always there's a pressure of the firstborn.
Wow. So
There's a
it means we share something in common. I'm also first born.
exactly.
I understand how much
Yeah,
pressure that comes with.
exactly. So there's a pressure of the firstborn. I want to even add and say there's a pressure of the African firstborn. I
Mm,
know. So real talk, I really felt growing up that I never measured up
mm,
to the expectations I had of my dad, my father. And
mm,
because the pressure came as early as whatever, when I was still figuring out how to even, where's my left, where's my right, then somebody's already like putting a lot of expectations on you. I like, so I get this nuclear whatever from my own family as well. Like I didn't see my cousins much and things like that. I only saw them at parties and stuff, but we're not like this. All the cousins get together. We're not really big. We're very nuclear. So the interactions or my general interactions were really around my dad, my mom, my siblings, just like that over and over again. And so uh, I was very shy. I was very shy. I wasn't out there. In fact, if my secondary school mates like see what I'm doing now and be like, is that the same guy? I know. So I was very shy. I lacked confidence. In fact, that's why I say when I want to go, I just want to go back and do all of that again. But it doesn't really matter. But it really shaped how I started to think about things because being a quiet, shy person meant I was very reflective. So
mhm.
I'm so it has a good side, it has a bad side, but the things I'm always in my head, scenarios and all of that. I was a daydreamer, big daydreamer as a kid. I don't even
Wow.
think it has left me, maybe, but now I get
Wow.
to execute more. But then, as a kid, I couldn't execute much, so I would just dream up all of these scenarios and all of that. I know, and because I was also shy as well, I didn't do much. I would really say I didn't do much. I know, but I think that's part of what made me very, very a deep thinker, an avid reader, and very analytical as a person and all of that. So when I look back, I just wish, okay, I could have gotten into more shenanigans as a teenager. I saw what my friends were doing and all of that, and I always just wished I could just like do it. So, but then I honestly didn't say I really did much then. Although most of it then coincided with my time in secondary school. I was in boarding house in a federal government college. And also, I had little experiences at home because it's just family and all of that. And then you and your parents, you're not mates and all of that. And then you're the firstborn. So the younger ones are looking up to you. So I can really say I had friends and things like that. So school was where I was exposed to a lot. And in that space, it was very clear that and I think that's also part of what affected the confidence. It was clear that people were actually getting experience. Maybe they had their older brothers, or maybe their parents were less strict and things like that. So they were outside and doing things while me I was just in my head wishing and thinking I could do things and all of that. So all that happened, and I finished secondary school around when I was 16. I was 16. This was in 2000. I was born in 1984. So I finished at 16, cleared my WAEC and all of those things. And in fact, it was really at that point that the relationship with my dad changed because all the while he was just telling me in African, you know how it is, like, don't
African
disgrace
parents,
me, don't
based on
disgrace me.
period academics.
If you fail your WAEC, you will disgrace me and things like that. I know. In fact, even between SS2 and SS3, he was like really considering like making me repeat SS2 because he didn't want me to disgrace his family name and all of that. and stuff. But I guess, and I was still, I mean, so I was struggling anyway. I was struggling. So it wasn't as if I wasn't brilliant. I was naturally brilliant, and but all of the other things around my life was like I was just clueless around stuff, managing myself and all of that. So obviously that affected my academics, and also I just became very average. And but by the time I got to SS3, I kind of started growing up, and then it just kind of like I just started understanding things. I just started understanding life. So that took me till I was 16. Then I was lucky, quote and unquote, to get into Yaba Tech almost immediately. I didn't stay at home for long. I think I stayed at home for about 6 months. By January 2001, I was in Yaba Tech. And again, that also now exposed another gap. So now you're in the real, but it's not boarding school. You're in
Dipped into the Shark
college or
Tank.
college-ish. Exactly, you're in college-ish and all of that. So struggled for one semester, but I was focused on academics. I struggled for one semester, and then in the second semester, I just kind of like had to talk myself out of not being shy, not being timid, not like really. I'm actually serious. Like I actually went into a camera into the mirror at some point. I started telling myself, "You're
Wow.
not ugly. You're handsome. You're this." And this was even before I even knew that it was even a technique. I mean, I just stumbled upon it. But sometimes you have to have your daily affirmations or just affirmations, even if it's not daily. That you're not you're not useless. You're not stupid. You're not whatever and things like that. So I literally had to do that and say, and this was the break between the first semester, my first year and second semester. I was just on my own. My siblings were in school. My parents had gone to work, so I just really had a lot of alone time. But then I didn't go out. I didn't do anything. I couldn't. It wasn't in my nature to get into anything. So I was, you're not useless. You're handsome. You're this. Anybody. So I had to do that and just kind of get that mindset. And by the time I got back into school for the second semester, boom, I just
The
started.
affirmations
I
were
mean,
leading to manifestations.
exactly. I mean, it was a journey. I wouldn't say all of a sudden, but I mean, it was just radically different. Changed my circle of friends and all of that. So generally, so that's how. So some people still see me now and just be like, "Yeah, shy," and all of that. So the thing is, no, I'm not shy anymore. I'm just introverted because I already realized that. I mean, I also tried after a while. I tried the whole, go out there, go to this, go to that, blah blah blah. Just realized it was draining. It was draining for me. It doesn't come naturally. So yes, I can keep a conversation when I go out and all of that. But what would I rather do? Yes, I would rather be at home, chilling, doing something that stimulates me and all of that. I still keep things done outside when I have to and all of that. So that's essentially my childhood. And one thing actually forgot. Also, but it's all ties to being shy and all of that. Was I was a late bloomer. So
Mm.
puberty came late for me. So I think I was in GS1 where they give all this stuff about when puberty is coming, your voice will do this, your this will do that, your does will do the blah, blah, blah. Man, it felt like the thing missed me completely.
The
So,
puberty was
so
not puberty.
it wasn't. And then when you're in boarding school like that, guys, guys are always bragging, I do this, I do this, I do this, I do that, blah blah blah. See this, see my two birds, see my this, my voice get like none of that was happening to me. So you just really felt like okay, yeah, I'm just down here. So that's pretty much my childhood. So it's a combination of fun because I think since growing up in the 90s, I think that was the last time anybody really had fun growing up, if you ask me. Although
Real fun.
I mean that's subjective, but as a growing up in the 90s, it was fun. And at the same time, even I'm almost 40 now, I still look and be like, sometimes it just I mean, I probably need to move on, but sometimes I'll be like, I need to go and do that again. But I want to do that with the knowledge I have now, and that's not that's I mean I mean that's not realistic or not anything. And even realizing that most of the people that I was even saying they're also figuring things out too. They're also teenagers like myself, and some of them were posturing and all of that. But it's all good. All of those experiences shaped me. I was extremely bullied as well. Obviously, I guess if it wasn't obvious from how I was saying it,
Yeah,
so I was obviously bullied a lot, just because. And sometimes bullying comes from a place of somebody just deciding I'm better than that guy. Not necessarily because they are a bully themselves. They just want to feel good. I think humans have this need to dominate. It's inherent.
exactly.
Just dominate the. We're
The
talking
weaker,
about
the weaker
before we
ones.
came in. Before we came, we were
Yeah.
talking about France and so forth. So things like that. So now I'm a very strong anti-bullying advocate.
Mm.
I know because of my experiences. So my experiences came from being bullied. So obviously I can't do anything on the kids side, but in the workplace I see corporate bullying and I literally speak up, like,
Fight against
because
that.
fight against that exactly. I mean, nobody bullies me anymore. In fact, I should be the bully at this point in time. But
Exactly.
then I
At
look
some
at
point in life, right?
yeah, so but I look at people that have been anywhere I work, and I actually have people can speak for me. Like in places where I see people are being bullied, like I literally walk up to the bully, and it's not as easy as just saying, "Yeah, if you're being bullied, fight back."
It
If you
is
could fight
difficult to
back,
fight back.
if
Yeah,
you could fight back, you won't be
you would
bullied.
have fun.
Like, yeah, and
Exactly.
corporate bullying is not like, if I think corporate bullying is worse, I mean, because you see grown women married with kids, and somebody is treating them less than, and they really can't leave because you are holding their source of livelihood, and you're treating them like one thing or the other. So I mean, from own experiences and all of that, I go and be like, no, you can't do that.
You can't do that.
You can't treat people like that. I mean, nobody of any age should be bullied. But I mean, then when you're not talking about people that come to work for you, they have families at home, they do all of that, then I mean, treat them with a basic level of decorum.
The respect.
So that's a long-winded story of my childhood, and
I
like
did a
some of
grade of.
experiences, and then bringing me to at least this point.
Interesting, interesting. I think some of the themes that really stick out for me from your childhood. Number one, you realizing that you are a deep thinker, right? And deep thinking is essential for critical thinking. So for me, I tell people something. I tell people the world is split into two types of people: the thinkers and the doers, right? In order to achieve
Yeah,
success in life, it is essential to achieve a balance between thinking and doing, because
true.
you can think all you can, right, have fantastic strategies, but then if you don't have fantastic execution as well, we both know that
You know, I
it's
mean,
it, it's
it lives
it
and
will
dies in
result
your
in
head.
nothing. It will
Yeah,
result in nothing.
it lives and dies in your head. True. I
And
totally.
interestingly, right, we're both finance guys, right? We're both chartered accountants, right? And I think in order
Mm,
to be successful as a chartered accountant, like, it's essential to have that deep thinking
mm,
as part of your skill sets, because a lot of the work that we do is analytical in nature, right? And you need that deep
yeah,
thinking. So I see
yeah.
I see something that has influenced your success, along those lines, right?
Mm,
Then I think
true.
another theme that sticks out for me. Okay, I think let's talk about the bully part, later on, right? That is
Mm,
that self-belief, right? Finding a way to push yourself even when you've been talked down on, even when you are being when the world is against you. It is very important, because you recollect that before we hit record button, I was talking about the
mm,
essence of the podcast, right? Which is,
true.
sharing the story of ordinary people doing extraordinary things, right? But with the aim
Mm,
to inspire people, especially the up and coming in society, right? In order for
mm,
them to see that these people that you look up to in society have been through worse things than yourself,
True.
and they have been able to overcome these things. So do not think that whatever you're going through is anything special. You can
True.
always pull through. And we sharing our stories, sharing our journeys just gives inspiration to people that they can actually make something vital out of their lives. You being able to find that self-belief, you know whatever your methods are. Different people have different methods, but then
Mm.
affirmations do really become manifestations. Affirmations
True.
do really come through with confirmations over time. You just need to keep doing it, and you've been able to find that consistency and all. Then I think another thing that struck me is your highly supervised childhood. Right?
Strict. Yeah.
A lot of successful people, e.g. the likes of Elon Musk, right? He spoke about his strict father. Some other people talk about unsupervised childhoods. But then I was going to put it to you, because I know you are a parent now,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
What do you think is a right balance in raising successful children, in terms of the mix of the supervision and the unsupervision? There's always that part of people figuring things out by themselves. It helps people to be able to achieve critical reasoning. You talked about how when you were thrown into the Shark Tank in tertiary
Mm.
education, you had to start
Yeah.
figuring things out for yourself. But if you had actually had that taste of on supervision in figuring things out yourself, I think you'd have done better at the early part, right? So, like, what was that good
Probably.
mix you'd advise parents to have in terms of supervision and giving children freedom? Like, I don't know how you'll be able to like advise people on that. What's the right
I,
mix?
I honestly don't even know if I'll be the very best person to actually answer that. So I have two young kids. My first is almost 4, and the second is almost 1. And so I mean, at this stage, they completely rely on their parents for 100% of everything they need. I know. But what I would say is, and giving it some context. So context is very good. My dad, and maybe it's one of the questions we would have touched upon later. So when I was 8 years old, primary 4, my dad called me and asked me what I wanted to be in future. And I mean, I think that's too early to ask someone. But he asked me what I wanted to be and all of that. So I said, with all the honesty of a kid, I said I wanted to be a teacher. And he was like, no, I want you to be a chartered accountant. So
Wow.
I don't know. I don't know who, I mean, how brilliant or what, or maybe what you're exposed to, but I don't know any 8-year-old that really understands what the concept of a chartered accountant is. Not even just an accountant. Say, I want to be a chartered accountant.
Mm,
And I'm like, okay. I mean, because my okay was just a case of you're my dad and I trust you to make the best decision for
decision.
me. Yeah, exactly. And like if you say it's chartered accountant, fine. So he could have said anything that day, and we would have actually started on that journey. He could have said, I wanted to be an engineer. And I'm like, okay. I mean, because we trust our parents, I mean, innately, especially at that age, people that have provided for you and all of that. So from that point, to my mind, from when I can remember, from that point, everything that he did was putting me on that path of being a chartered accountant. So,
Mm.
and he was very strict about it. A parallel I can draw is the Jackson 5 or Michael Jackson, the story. If you've heard about that and how,
Okay.
like, yeah,
Yeah,
you're going to
how
be
I
a
really grew into the
superstar.
5 kids. Yeah,
Exactly.
the
You guys are
music.
going to be music superstars, blah, blah, blah. And like nothing else matters. So, and I mean, if you hear Michael tell stories of his childhood, I mean, you almost feel like wow, but all this while you were a world dominating superstar, you were smiling in front of the cameras, but this was so it feels that way. But then also realizing that all of that was done out of love. So it wasn't what's that word now? It's not diabolical, it's not hate, it's not whatever.
It's not
So
toxic.
it's not yeah, it's not
It's not
toxic.
toxic. Yeah.
Uh okay. Let me not go that far. I mean, maybe at least from the person doing it, it's not that they want to be toxic, but sometimes they can have toxic effects. Maybe that's the way I would say it.
Okay, yeah, in
So
terms of your intentions and your actions, right? Yeah, the
exactly,
intention might be
exactly.
positive, the action
Yeah,
might tend to be toxic.
exactly. So for some reason, I didn't just get why my dad was so strict with me, like in terms of it must be this, it must be this, it must be this. Go and read your book, go and do this, go and do, go and do, blah, blah, blah. Like I'm just a kid. Like, let me be a kid. So like, yeah, da. If I come anything less than, I mean, if we're 50 in class and I get like 25th position or something like that's gonna be a very terrible holiday. Like, seriously, I wish I was back in school because it won't let me, it won't let me rest. I know. So the good holidays for me at home was just when I'd done well in school. So it was just like continuous pounding, like this is how. So it was strict around a lot of things. No this, no this, no that, no that. Just focus, just focus, just focus. And so why that context is important is the focus was very good for me eventually. So I started my ICANN journey just shortly after my 19th birthday, and I
Wow.
qualified when I was 21. Yeah, just before my 22nd birthday. I mean, the timing is whatever. I'm
Oh,
part
did you
of
do
it.
ATS?
Yes, I did ATS.
Oh, wow,
So because I
interesting.
went
I
to
did that as
Yabatech, I
well.
did I did ND and then used ND to start ATS 3, and then 2 years later I was qualified. I qualified in
Wow,
2006.
wow,
Um,
interesting.
Yeah. So so when I actually started, or okay, before that, when I got myself, so to speak, growing up, when I got myself, when I was in Yaba Tech, I was the best student in accounting in the accounting department for a very short while. But as in, and I finished with a distinction. And so what I'm trying to say is that all of that I did, like, instilled some sort of focus, discipline, those
Hmm.
qualities that ordinarily, without the supervision, I would just be running around being like telling myself I'm being free and all of that. And but the truth is, I hated or not every, but I hated it. I just hated the fact that I would say it didn't let me have the childhood or that growing up stuff that I wanted, that I actually saw that people having. People that were not as strictly supervised, but then we still got to the same place because we
Destination,
still did
yes.
the icon, we still exactly. So they got to live a little, and they were still disciplined enough to take the academic part seriously. And all. Meanwhile, my kids was all just da 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 da. I mean, and that pressure is not unique to me, but I feel kids really can't handle that and shouldn't handle that, to be honest. So the long-winded answer today is, yeah, there has to be some sort of balance between um, being strict. So definitely parents must supervise their kids. Like that's no whatever. And they must teach them qualities like focus, discipline, as in certain ways. But you don't want to risk like doing it too much, and then it kind of breeds some sort of resentment. And to be fair, I think it took a while to really get back to that place with my dad, because in the mind of a kid, all this I'm saying is because I'm now 40, I've gone through whatever. I now understand like that man didn't hate me. I really thought my dad hated me. as a kid. I no, no. So, and when you hear the entirety of the childhood, I was bullied in school. At home, I felt my dad hated me and all of that. So you
It's
can
just difficult.
exactly you can say how that starts to affect a kid's psyche, and so I feel kids, at least not up till 15, 16, shouldn't go through that. Life is hard already. But then I don't
Exactly.
also feel that parents should coddle their kids too much to the point where they can't even function to in life. So finding the balance is an obvious answer. Making the balance or getting what the balance is then like now difficult. How do you do it? So
How do you execute that?
yeah, I don't know, and I'm hoping I have some time to figure it out. I mean, like I said, one is
Oh
four.
yeah.
Yeah, but it's
You have
something
some
I do.
years.
Exactly. But it's something I actually actively do think about. I mean, so like in my own case, if I had said at any point that I wasn't going to be a chartered accountant and all of that, I would have instantly disappointed my dad. And no kid wants to do that. It's already pressure. So anytime I did stuff that wasn't in like, he would let me know that he was disappointed. I mean, in addition to beatings and all of that, but you let me know. But I think it's that feeling like I don't want to disappoint my dad. I don't want to disappoint my dad. Like that kind of like really pushed me in that in that space of the pressure I had as a kid. So
Hmm.
hopefully I find a balance of so first off, I'm not going to tell any of my kids I want them to be this, I want them to be that. I'm definitely not doing that. What I would try and do is just watch. So I think if once you watch kids, you just inherently know what they gravitate to,
What they're capable of, right?
what they're capable of, and all of that. So they are not forced into a box. And then when you and them, I mean, you and the kids kind of like come to, okay, this is where you're good, artistically, you're good. And with, I guess with a lot of, like I said, a deep thinker and all of that, I've actually realized that there are a lot of ways to be successful. You don't have to be a chartered accountant. You don't have to. I mean, 10 years ago, how many people were doing podcasts and how many people were Instagram
I will tell
models?
you my
As
story. I'll
in,
tell you my
there's
story in a
so
nutshell.
exactly there are so many jobs. There are so many jobs that we have right now that
Ah,
didn't even exist. That
mhm.
didn't exist. And I'm sure, yes, I know there are
Yeah,
some jobs that are, I would say, timeless. Like, so you always need doctors, blah, blah, blah. And
definitely,
sometimes it's
definitely.
in a bit to play it safe, like go for this safe whatever, then you actually
Yes,
miss out on letting people really, really like get their potential, like whatever it is. I know.
discover
So if I
themselves
wasn't
as
a
human
charter, yeah,
beings.
discover that exactly, and even really make the impact in the world that they're supposed to make. So there are
Mhm.
people just stuck. I mean, they have all the talent in the world, but they are stuck in a. And I don't denigrate it at all because I want it, but they're stuck in a 9 to 5 that is totally limiting what they're. So when you're in 9 to 5,
Their
you can
potential.
only yeah, exactly. You can only walk to your employer's rules and all of that. So
Mhm.
if if you want to do something but you're not really free. So some people like that, some people like that structure. For other people, it's like they really want to do something else. But
Mhm.
from their childhood, they had been forced to think you must be this, you must be this, you must be that. And even when they try to find themselves as adult, like they've already gone
You've gone
too
far
deep
on the
into
wrong road.
one part that to start to change and all of that is stuff. So I mean so I won't say there's one right or wrong answer, but obviously, like with anything in life, everything is balanced.
Yeah, okay, interesting. African parents can tend to be quite pushy. And I
Yeah.
actually I can relate for one as well, right? I'm a chartered accountant
Mm,
like yourself, and then I'll tell you a bit about my story. So,
mm,
like growing up, my own parents are always like, "Oh, try and be a professional," because I feel like that is a social insurance. Like if you're a
mm,
professional, if you're one of the core professionals, like you can't go hungry, things can't go wrong for you, especially financially, right? So I think
yeah.
like when I was in secondary school, I was a science student. They felt like, oh, this boy is academically bright. Okay. Then at some point, there was like talks about, oh, becoming a doctor, blah blah blah. But then I was always very poor at math. So
Mm.
it's one thing I always, tell people to inspire them. At some point I used to teach, ACCA, ICANN students, right? But then,
Yeah.
trust me, I failed mathematics twice at O level. I was very, very poor at math. When you
Mm.
remember JAMB, we used to write JAMB.
Sure, sure, sure.
I scored 288 on my JAMB, right? But
Mm.
trust me, I would have scored over 300. It was because of mathematics. I think I
Was
scored just
mathematics.
50. I scored 50 in mathematics.
Oh,
And
I
I
even
still
think
had
that's high.
no, that was because I had to push myself, right? Because I had
Okay,
to push,
imagine.
I really had to push myself, right? So
Mm.
for me, when it came to academics, I was like always a high flyer. But when it came to mathematics, I always performed poorly. And that's because like I had really bad teachers who would like pressure you, make you feel stupid and all because you don't know
Mm.
numbers. But when I got into university, I decided to discover that there was a method behind the madness. So when I wanted to like pick something for uni, I wanted to pick mass communication, and my father told me that
Mm.
you can only pick that if you know you pay your school fees by yourself.
Mm.
And then I knew that wow, the die is cast. He was like, go study something professional, blah blah blah. And then thought, okay, what else did I like enjoy in secondary school? I used to like economics. And I'm going to tell you a very funny story about why I liked economics. Because, growing up, my mom was always about, oh, economize things in the household. You guys don't know how to economize. And that was why. That was why I got to like economics. I was like, okay, let me learn how to economize. And then when I got into it, I
Mm.
was like, it's not even about
This is not what
economizing.
it is. I know, right?
That is more of home economics.
Yeah,
But
you're very correct. I mean, I
you know,
actually for a long time I thought accounting was banking, so
yeah,
but
exactly,
accounting and
right?
banking was so.
So at some point, when I finished, well, okay, I finished secondary school, and then my father was like, "Oh, would you do ICANN?" In my head, I was like, "What's ICANN
Mm,
about?" Like anything. I always had this mentality of I can do all things through Christ that
sure.
strengthens me. So he was like, "Oh, you do ICANN?" I was like, "Okay, as long as it's to keep busy." And that's how I got into
Mm, got
the
into
whole
the
ICANN
space.
thing. And he
Investing.
always wanted me to be a chartered accountant, blah, blah, blah. So, okay, I'll push this through, I'll push this through. And, I remember the day I got inducted, I think, okay, the day my final results of ICANN came out, and
Mm.
then it was confirmed that, I'll be a chartered accountant. My father said, yes, that is my son. I was like, whoa, wait a minute. All this while I'm
Was it
not being your
yourself
son.
before? I
African
know,
parents,
I
are
know.
usually very proud of these things, about you
Yeah,
being a
I mean, I
professional
felt it. I
and
actually
everything.
felt it in fact, at, so at some point, yeah, I actually felt like the only time I was good enough for my parents was when I did anything academically. Any other thing didn't matter. So, like mentioned, when I was the best student in the class, everywhere I went, my dad would be like, "Have you met my son? He's the best student in his class. Have you met my son? He's the best student." I'm like, "Why is he? Why is he saying this?"
Yeah, but one thing I remember, my
Mm,
father also telling me then was that he told me you can be a you can be a professional, right,
mm,
and still be a mass communicator. But then you can't be a mass communicator and be like a finance professional, for example. And the
mm,
thing that kind of kept me going, and many years down the line, yeah, I'm still a full-time finance professional, but now I have my
mm,
own podcast.
mm,
So years down the line, it started to make sense to me that okay, this man wanted me to be relevant in society, to be resourceful. But I think where a lot of African parents, get it wrong is, explaining the method behind the madness to these kids. Like they want you to be successful in life, right? They want you to be relevant in society. They want you to earn respect, in society, right? In
mm,
amongst your peers, in the society generally, to them as well, right? But as well, they should always try to create that balance. So for me, I had to chase that balance because, yeah, finance, yeah,
mm,
talented, you're gifted, you have the mental capacity, but is this really what you want to do? Is this how you really want to impact the world? No. So you can always achieve that balance between, okay, I do something that I'm gifted at, right? And also I I do something that I have developed skills and like competences around. So I think that that balance
Yeah.
is actually just very much
Yeah.
required. And
Yeah.
apparently, we're in the 21st century. We have a lot of professions, like you said earlier, that never existed previously, and people can
Yeah.
be core professionals and also have like side gigs as well. So
Yeah, those things can
interesting.
actually be main income stuff too. I mean, like at some point,
Mhm.
people are just making money off podcasts, and people are making money just being off on YouTube, on TikTok. Like that's their main stuff.
Yeah, we are now in the
So
digital economy now.
Exactly. I mean, at some point, tech just meant you were a computer scientist, or you should just know how to use computer. But now look at how that has actually changed. So I mean, just to round up that aspect of the discussion, I know. So for me, it's what I'm oh, what I'm trying to get to is that I think our parents focused a lot on what we're going to do professionally, what we're going to do to make money. But at the same time, because you are raising a human, life is a lot more than that. So life should be about raising a well-rounded person
Person.
beyond just, oh, so I'm raising my kids to be a doctor. I'm raising my kids to be an accountant. I'm raising my kids to be a. I feel that's just one box. And as humans, we have capabilities beyond that. If we eventually we get to put ourselves in a box on our own, I think that's fine. I mean, because again, a lot of people like structure. They like to know, as you're putting, this is what's happening next. So that's fine. That would never go away. But I think as parents should encourage their kids to dream widely, and part of it is just be a well-rounded person. Yeah, no academics. If you do no academics, what else do you know? If it's sports, like I had people in secondary school then that were very good in sports, like very good, run 100 meters, blah blah blah. But then because and I feel like if they had gone into that professionally, they would have actually
Should have done well.
really, yes, they would have thrived. But their parents were kind of like forcing them to be like, no, you must be an accountant, you must be a this, you must be a that, blah blah blah. And then you can, and they were not even good at the academic stuff. But just put them on the. There's this guy, as I've said, there's this guy in my head. I just come in like put the guy on the field. He's playing football. He's on the track and field. Like this guy was so good. He had to repeat classes and all of that because that was in, and it's just a case of that. I mean, it's just a case of if his talents were nurtured in such a way that it doesn't have to be something, but then we can take whatever he has in himself, his talents and all of that, can actually grow as just as a person that, well, okay, yeah, school is this, that is, blah, 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 and things like that. So just generally find that balance to say, okay, yeah, be a well-rounded person as opposed to just training people like you're just training them to be a certain thing. So that's definitely what I'll do differently.
Hmm. Oh, wow, interesting. So let's talk about your career before your career journey before the creation of my CFO NG, right?
Mm.
So you were
Yeah,
built into becoming a chartered accountant. A
yeah,
lot of
I
what we've been
was,
discussing basically is about the journey, the road to becoming a
yeah,
chartered accountant, right? So,
yeah.
what was the journey, after becoming a chartered accountant, before you created my CFO NG?
All right. So I mean that's actually straightforward and very short. I qualified in 2006, like I said, but I just finished my HND at the time. I went for service, and I kind of I wanted to get a BSc, because I was worried about my HND. I actually finished with a second class. Sorry. well, equivalent of a if BS and HNDs were equivalent of each other. So I
Equivalent.
finished with the equivalent of a second class lower. So that was lower credit. So
Oh
in fact, at
wow.
that point, yeah. So at that point, it just felt like my life was over even before it started. Like nobody would. So I was qualified. I was a qualified chartered accountant, but I had an HND lower credit. So because of that, I had to, which is a good thing anyway. So that's because of that, I had to get a BSc. So instead of working after my service here, I went into trying to get a BSc. So I got a BSc from Oxford Brookes University in the UK. So in fact, I mean, because with all the packaging and all of that, if that's what you see everywhere, you wouldn't even see that I did HND somewhere, and I have a BSc from Oxford Brookes University, blah blah blah. So long story short, I my career officially started in late 2008. I spent about 4 months in First Pension Custodian Nigeria Limited. It's a subsidiary of the First Bank Holdings. So it's a pension house. I'm collecting money, so, but I wasn't doing anything accounting related. Actually interviewed for an accounting role, blah blah blah, but they were like, "Nah, go and start at the contributions department." So pretty much what I was doing there was, once you make a pension contribution, my job was just to enter your details into the system. That okay, yeah, we've seen your money, so let's credit you and all of that. So luckily, but before then, obviously I'd had all my life was planned to go into accounting. So like talking back from my childhood, so my plan, my life was planned that way. So that was like a detour. So I obviously applied to all the big four: Deloitte, PwC, EY, and KPMG. I was this close to getting into KPMG. I
Wow.
cleared their test, I cleared interviews. Then I was supposed to meet with a partner, and then that's when they realized that my BSc was from Oxford Brookes, and they didn't accept it, and I was distraught
Shattered.
because yeah, I was shattered because I mean I felt I've written about this on my LinkedIn because I felt that yes, they had a policy, and so they won't even call you to come for these interviews or tests if you don't meet certain requirements. So probably
Mhm.
somebody missed it by just saying BSc. I didn't even think they were calling HNDs then, which kind of like indicated my decision to go get a BSc. So, but then and it's very competitive, obviously. So cleared the test, cleared a couple of interviews, and it was just the partner and everybody. My friends that were in KPMG then were telling me that the partner interview is a formality, and because you've really gone through the hard pass.
The
So I
rigorous
was
parts.
already, yeah, exactly. So I was already excited that okay, this was going to be my first real job. And all of a sudden, they just called me and said, "My BSc is from Oxford Brookes." I said, "Yeah." I was like, sorry, we don't accept that." So what hurt? So that's fine actually, in the sense that yes, that's their criteria. But what hurt me the most was the fact that oh yeah, I didn't meet that criteria, but then I cleared stuff that
All of the
shows that
stages.
I'm beyond
You're
just
competent
that piece of
enough.
paper. Exactly. I'm competent enough. Like, yeah, I wasn't supposed to make it true, but then you missed something and I made it true. And then all these barriers that you put, I scaled them, but then you still think I'm not good enough to join you. So that's what hurt me, and not even the fact that they had the criteria for whatever that. So obviously, and the other ones were not coming true. So on my 24th birthday in 2008, I was just tired. I just went online. I was searching. I was not actively searching. So there was me having my BSc from Oxford Brookes. I keep saying it because obviously this part of it, like, yeah, you have a UK BSc. I had ICANN. I'd already started ACC. I was in my finals exam and all. So generally in my head, like like people should be rushing to employ me.
Just to
I
have you
know.
on board.
So to have me on board, like, and yes, maybe I had a lower credit and all of that, but I knew I was brilliant, and not just even brilliant academically. Like, I was just willing, ready to work and all of that. So anyway, I ended up just going to work for this chartered accounting firm in somewhere in Oshodi in Lagos. And then you know that you made a mistake when on the first day they give you a laptop and then you use the laptop to start searching for other jobs. I was like, okay, how
Whoa.
did I end up? How did I end up here? And I mean, so the guy told me was going to pay me 20,000 naira, and in fact, he told me that I should be paying him because he was going to train me. I know.
Whoa.
And
No
for
way.
some reason, I just, so no, I wasn't forced. He didn't force me, blah blah blah. I decided to accept the offer. So it wasn't like he tricked me or whatever. I decided to accept the offer, but immediately I started. In my head, I was just like, you know what? Work in a place for like 6 months is a chartered accounting firm, and then you can then at least have that. You're not home alone. You're not bored. Blah blah blah. All of those things were
You
playing
have that
in my head.
experience.
Yeah, and I wanted to also prove that I could get a job without my parents. So I was just joking. I think people should leverage on the connections that they have. As in, don't even try and stuff. So after a month, as in, yeah, I sat down with my parents. I was still living at home at the time, and just okay, like this, yeah, nah, this isn't working. I know. So I used my mom's connections. My mom worked in First Bank for about 33 years. So I just used my mom's connections to get into First Pension. I wrote a test and all of that. I mean, our connection was just to actually get me in front of someone that would say, okay, yeah, write the test. So I wasn't nepotism or anything or things like that. I wrote the test, I cleared it. And the man told me if I didn't clear that, irrespective of the relationship he had with my mom, I was going to get in. So I got in. So I stayed for 4 months. That was November 2008 to March 2009. I was lucky to get into Deloitte. So
Wow.
for me, that
At long last,
so
breaking into the big
yes,
four.
at long last. And in fact, it's a funny story because First Pension was awesome, like very awesome, very good working environment. But because obviously I wanted to do something accounting related, and I mean, it didn't matter if they had put me in accounting, internship, whatever, I would have loved it. But I didn't love what I was doing. But what I was doing was working on Excel. And Excel in 2008, people don't even know how to use Excel now. But Excel in 2008 was completely
It's a big
different.
deal.
It was a big deal, still new. I know. So when I went for my Deloitte interview, they just, after I met with the senior manager, blah blah blah. After a while, they just told us. I think there were about 10 of us. They just gave us laptops and told us to just do. I can't remember what they told us to do. At that point, they were like, that was what I was literally doing every single day at First Fashion Custodian. In
Wow.
fact, one of the guys that came for the interview could not even open Microsoft Word. Like he didn't even know what the icon looked like. As and so at that point, so it was just a case of like see how God works or see how the world works. Like wonders because I didn't like my job, but I was entering Excel, so I known how to do Excel, this, that, blah blah blah. And I just came for an interview, and all of a sudden there's this Excel test, and they gave us 10 minutes to do something. I think in 5 minutes I was done, and I was the only one that was done. So at that point, I still started having confidence that yes, I'm getting this job because I could see every other person still struggling. I was done. Like no, so I got into Deloitte in March 2009. But I wasn't in Lagos. I was in the Port Harcourt office. I stayed till um 2017. I stayed for 8 years. In between, I was seconded to the US because I was so I stayed in Dallas for almost 2 years. Came back, became a manager, managed some of our biggest companies in Nigeria. My first job, my very first big managerial job was a big client that we just got from KPMG at the time. I mean, the
Oh,
client
whoa.
rotated from they rotated from off KPMG and came to Deloitte, and then somehow I was handed the job to manage, and I just became a manager. So that kind of job should have been for a senior manager. So in some quarters, some people will be like, they're setting this guy up. Why would they give him this massive job? And then the other side of
Exactly.
it is exactly, and the other side of it was like, is it not Ajibola? We trust him. As Ajibola, if anybody can handle it, Ajibola can handle it. So I spent at least the time before that, like building myself, building that reputation to the point where it got to a point where they were like, yeah, we have this massive job, we have this guy that we just made a manager. And I'm talking big, complex, listed of the New York Stock Exchange, in Europe, all of our group reporting, subsidiary reporting, all of those, whatever. I mean, people that are not accounting inclined will understand, but
Yeah, they would understand,
that's
but they're complex
massive.
structures.
Yeah,
And of
that's
course, it's
massive. That's
like
massive for
complex
an auditor.
financial statement line
Exactly,
items. It's
exactly.
crazy.
And then you're the big four as well. Then you
Yeah,
understand
two of
what
the big
happens
fours.
again. Exactly. You also understand what happens again with things like practice review. So it's not just you doing what you're doing to the clients. At the same time, the practice is looking at you to see that you're actually representing correctly. I know. But anyway, so I stayed for a while. I stayed until 2017 before I then left to become a CFO at what I'll call a mid-sized company. So it wasn't a plan, to be honest.
Like
But
you still the question off my lips, right? Because for me,
yeah,
I think when I worked with two of the big fours, anyways,
yeah,
PwC, KPMG, yeah, in the UK, and
yeah,
also had to
yeah,
move on to like a mid-sized firm.
yeah,
Um, I remember when I was with PwC, a senior manager told me something. He said the Big Four is a great place to start your career, but
yeah.
not really a great place to end it. And I was like,
Mm,
wow. And I'm still an associate. Like for a senior manager to be telling me this, he was at the verge of leaving the firm, and he called some
mm,
of us and advised us that learn as much as you can in this space. It's a fantastic
true.
platform, for you to learn, pick up a lot of skills, competences. But these skills and competences, right, are more
Mm,
valued, more valuable outside of the big four
mm,
environment. Like if you know
mm,
you're ambitious, it's a springboard for you to go into the world, to shine and let your light shine. I was like, okay,
mm,
interested. So over time,
mm.
I
Yeah,
understand that piece of advice. So for you, right, like what
yeah.
actually inspired that movement from the big four?
That move. Yeah. So the truth is, my overall plan from day one, when I mean day one, so day one, I can't remember what day one was. So it was to be the CFO of a large listed company in Nigeria or well, anywhere in the world. So it's more like, and I don't know why, but this company always comes to my head, Cadbury. Or maybe because I heard my dad say it at some point. Like, so when you
Oh
just say who's the
wow.
CFO of Cadbury, you just say that's Ajibola Jinadu. So from day one, I always knew that's always been my overarching plan. The CFO of that kind of company.
Mm, top organization.
So with that kind of organization, yeah. So even on joining Deloitte, and to be honest, I mean I love Deloitte, but at that start point, it literally could have been anyone. None of them. I like. Was it like I like this one over this one or whatever? So at that point, it was whoever takes me first is where I was going to go learn. So my plan was to learn to go and spend 2 3 years in one of them. I'd always said that the day they make me a senior, that's the day I'll resign. So I'll do associate work and then and when I first joined and I saw how the seniors were doing software head, I was like, no, the day you make me a senior is the day is the day I drop my letter. At all. So so my plan was to spend 2 years in a big four and then move to the industry. So the industry plan had always been there from day one. So what happened? I mean, life has other plans. So what happened was I was actually very good at what I did in auditing, and it's not because of auditing itself. Again, you see the background from where I started, how my dad was drilling me. So I was already good in financial accounting, in all of that. I did ICANN when I was still very young, when I didn't have any other responsibilities. I read HND accounting. I did BSc in accounting as well. I've done ACCA. So a lot of those things had already kind of like shaped. So when I started working, I was already 2, 3 steps ahead of people that we
Most
started
people.
together. Exactly. And in fact, at some point, I started leading jobs with people that had been in the firm before me quickly. So I mean, it's not bragging. I mean, it's the fact. But then, even if it's bragging, it's fine. It was very clear that I was a high flyer. There's my friend too is in the UK as well. As in both of us, it was just very obvious that. So when somebody just joined within 3, 4, 5 months, like your names are on everybody's lips. We were in the Port Harcourt office, and then the guys in Lagos were just hearing our names like Ajibola, Ajibola, Ajibola. So because of that, almost every single year that I was with Deloitte, every single one except for the last year, and that was a business case, I got a promotion. So it kept on shifting the, should I say, the goalpost. So, if at some point I felt I was stagnant or not moving, then maybe it would have made my decision easy to move out
Easy and faster.
faster. But it just felt like, so next year, from senior associate, senior one, senior two, senior three, go to US, stay the years, state blah, 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 manager, like that. So it just felt like every single year with the promotion and all of that, that felt like a new challenge, something. So there was always something to look forward to. But
An extra incentive.
an extra incentive, one, and then naturally with humans as well. You don't want to leave your comfort zone. As it was comfortable, so every year, I mean, I'm working in a great place. I mean, it's stressful to work, so I don't even blame that on the company, on the firm itself, or I don't blame it on any big four. It's just stressful working there, but it's not because of how they are structured. It's because of what we have to deliver. And what we have to deliver to the client and all of that is what makes it stressful and not. If so, I even think all the firms are trying and trying to make it easy, but then the demands never stop, and that's just the finance world generally. Like it never sleeps. So why should you why should you sleep at all? So so I was comfortable. I was comfortable knowing that if I just did what I needed to do well, I would get promoted, and also so I didn't leave. So something that was supposed to be 2 years, that's end up spending 8 years. But
Eight.
deep down, if you and I had met and had a discussion, then like I'll just be like, I don't want to be here. I don't want to be here. So it got to a point, people that used to hear me just be like, okay, why are you saying? Like you don't want to be here, but
But
when
you're
next
doing
they are
well
doing an
here.
award, when next time they do awards, they will call your name. When they say they've done this, you are setting up all these things here, but I don't want to be here. Because the truth is, eventually, I think one knocked it out of the park for me. Eventually, was I looked at, so I was in audit, obviously, but we did a lot. I mean, you start in audit, but then you just realize that you are like, yeah, you're a superstar in so many things. So I looked at their lives, not their like personal lives, but I just looked at, okay, let me not say their lives. So I looked at the audit partners, and I was like, no. So
Look
I
at the
looked up and I'm
lifestyle.
like,
Look at the lifestyle at the top. Is this what I really
yeah,
want to
so
become?
I don't want to say life because I mean it might
No,
feel a bit
lifestyle.
personal.
Let us look at the
Yeah, yeah,
lifestyle. Uh,
yes, and not even personal. So not personal. So not outside of work. So because I have great friends that are partners, to be honest. But I looked at what a partner does and yes, there's big money there. I mean, being an audit partner, there's like you're set. But I looked at it and they still can't rest. So I feel like if you will climb to the top, there should be a point where you've literally paid your dues and then you're now lounging. And then the audit partners can't read. In fact, I mean, with the
Higher
way audit
risk and
opinions and
responsibilities.
exactly
Yeah, higher
with the
risk
way
and
audit opinions
responsibilities.
work and all of that, I mean, if anything should happen, they won't even call the manager. I mean, so even if they're going to sue, they won't even call the manager. So the risk means they can't. And I was like, no, I don't want that. So I don't think any job is easier than the other. In its every whatever is whatever is good, whatever is going to be, is going to have hard parts. It's just whether can you deal with the hard parts. So to put everything together, I wasn't really into audit. I was good at it, but I wasn't really into audit to start with. It wasn't my plan. I was going to be the CFO of a large listed company. And then even if I wanted to reconsider, I looked at it and I said, no, 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 no. I don't want to be an audit partner. So all of that just culminated in at some point. I literally resigned without having a job somewhere else because I felt that was the kick I needed. So it's not as if I wasn't searching, but naturally the stuff is to be confident in saying that okay, yes, at least I have another job that I'm going to, and then once I get there, as in that will make it easy for me to resign here. So that didn't happen, and I will tell you, I interviewed or at least tried so many places, your Lafarges, and so all that place, Lafarge, Sahara, all those places that I thought in my head that big company that will
Like
be
the
very lucky
juicy.
to have. Yeah, exactly. That we're very lucky to have Ajibola Jinadu, blah blah blah, and that's life generally because that's what my mindset had always been because I knew I had the capacity. I knew I'd trained very well to be at that point. I worked with so many great clients that I just even thought one day one of them would just call me and say, Ajibola, we are poaching you from Deloitte. That never happened.
Exactly. I
And
don't know why
and
that thing happens to us in audit, like we always
yeah,
think
no,
that,
so it happened to a lot
because
of people around me, but it never did happen to me. Like, and I was, in fact, I was so lazy that thinking that that's what was going to happen. That's
Mhm,
because I've done amazing work for clients, and I'll just be one of just like,
exactly.
Ajibola, you've been so good, you've been so awesome. Come and work with us, and I'll just be like, yeah, this is my sign-on fee, and things like that. So that never happened to me. So I started like, okay, putting my own way out and say, okay, if these people that I'm working with don't know how good I am, I'll find my way. So I applied to all these big companies. Obviously, I wasn't applying to be CFO there in those places, but I was like, okay, I was going to be finance manager, finance controller, work my way up there as well. But very, very confident that, like, very confident in my abilities that they were going to get a valuable person, and everything ties because that's life. So eventually, it got to a point where I had to like lower my gaze and all, so to speak. And so that's how I ended up at this very fantastic, wonderful place to work. It was called Tennessee Professional Services, or it's called Tennessee Professional Services, and I was the CFO. And so when I decided to take that role, and I decided, okay, I can't go to a smaller place. So my plan was always to be a CFO, but I was going to leave Deloitte, be a finance manager, finance controller, blah blah blah, work my way up in that space. But then I was not like, okay, if I'm going to go to a mid-sized firm, then definitely I'm not going to start like all
Small.
of that. So it was going to be go to a mid-sized firm and then become CFO immediately. So that kind of fast tracked my career into being a CFO. So if you're keeping track of the times or the years, so I worked 8 years at Deloitte to 2017. So it means I became a CFO at 33 years
Wow,
old.
that's
Yeah.
that's quite a fast track.
Yeah, so that's kind of fast track. I mean, everything is context, is nuance. So a CFO in a smaller firm or a smaller company is definitely not the same as CFO in a big one.
In a
But
big
the
one.
truth is, at least with all honesty and all of that, I can say I actually try to get into these established companies that I so that's how I actually made the move out from that space,
Okay,
from
but
Deloitte
then
to the
you're
industry.
my CFO NG, right? So how did
Yes,
that now
yes.
come about? You
All
being a
right.
CFO now creating my
Yes,
CFO NG.
yes. So luckily it was also the experience. So first I had this 8 year experience in, so I won't call it audit anymore at this point, in consulting, because essentially that's what it was. Just that we did a lot of audit, but most of the time it was consulting. So I had this 8 year experience in consulting with a big four. I had the biggest clients in Nigeria. I also had small clients. So I had clients where literally they have only one account staff because they always have to balance our portfolio as managers. And I had clients where I just walk in and they have 50 account staff. So, and I'd audited over, or at least consulted for over 100 companies in that space in my time at Deloitte. So I'd seen all sorts of companies, big, small, whatever, offshore, onshore, like I'd seen a lot, and which is why I actually went through that route. I didn't want to be in one company and then start from receivables to payables to fixed assets. So I went through the, why I really wanted a big four, an accounting firm, is so that I see a lot of clients in different industries and all of that to kind of like add to my experience. That's really why I went that route. So that was there. The consultant in me never left. Then I joined a company that at the time was struggling with structure. They were struggling with structure.
And
So
that's one
revenues
thing
were
us big four people are very used to. We love structure.
exactly.
Yeah.
That's what got me the job. That's what got me the job, to be honest. It wasn't, if I, it took me 3 months to first realize that the CFO's role or CFO's job is not IFRS. So when you're an audit, is IFRS this, ISA this, blah, 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 and all of that. But that's what got me the job. That they were big on structure. If that's what got me, when they were like, "You're coming from," if I think the company at the time, and I don't always listen to this, but maybe, but anyways, my perspective, I think the company at the time was just like they couldn't believe that they got someone like me to join them. Like people that work at Deloitte, gone to US, blah, 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 they don't go and join mid-sized firms. I know. And to be honest, for a while I struggled with it. For a while I struggled with it. Like, shouldn't I be in a bigger place, bigger, better place? So I struggle with it. But everything has a reason, and that reason has also led me to my CFO NG. So so company was making a lot of money, but at the same time losing a lot of money because of the lack of structure or lack of financial structure and all. So that was my role as a CFO to start that. So I was doing that and I was getting first-hand experience. In fact, that thing opened my eyes to a whole new different world outside of audit and big four and whatever. And if I realized that all the clients that I'd actually been auditing in all these years, once you come for audit, you don't see anything. To be very honest, because I've looked at both sides now. You don't see anything. But like what somebody has done in 1 year, you come and trying to audit it in 2, 3 weeks. You're not seeing anything. Forget. And again, I realize that the real decisions is the decisions and all of those things that companies take that reflect in whatever financial reports that we now start to audit. So getting in the room of the decision makers is like the real big deal, as opposed to making financial reports and all of that. The financial reports, in fact, if the first time you're really getting into anything is in the financial reports, then you're too late. Because all you're doing at that point is analyzing all
What
the
has been done
decisions
already?
and actions that have been done. You're too late. I know. So my eyes were opened, to be honest. So my experience before that wasn't a waste, but then my eyes were now opened, especially in an unstructured setting. So a structured setting, there's a board, there's a this, there's a that. But once you start to work for private guys, like literally it's company, but it's like one man business at the same time, then you
No
realize that a lot of
hierarchy, no
no
segregation of
hierarchy,
duties.
exactly. Exactly. And decisions are made fast. And these guys are making cool money. They're not into illegal stuff. They're just not doing it in the way that you would expect all the business books have taught you. So the business book have taught us this is this, this is this, this is this, you pay dividend, blah blah blah, all these things, They don't wait. And things are happening. And you can't then decide to say, no, 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 you're not doing it the way they taught us in management class or this like that. Like, who cares? No one cares. So what happened in that space was that some people didn't even know that I'd left Deloitte, which was normal. And they will call me and then say, I'm having an issue with this, I'm having an issue with that. So I was giving free advice. At the same time, I was learning the other side, the industry side of things. So what I now really observed in that space was that there were lots and lots of businesses in Nigeria in particular that are suffering from a lack of financial structure. Yes, they are owners and all of that are making money, but they could make more. But more importantly, they're losing money,
Or
like
losing. They're
bleeding,
burning
bleeding
cash.
money. Yeah, I just it's like no structure around inventory. People will buy inventory, they will just everything, they will just steal it or stuff like that. Vendors will be taking advantage. All of those things, no IFRS prepares you for that. No ISA, nothing prepares you for that.
Poor,
That's like
poor internal
real
controls.
exact point in our country. Those are real life problems that have financial
Implications.
impacts, implications. And then the guys that are involved are looking at it, they're not looking at the financial impact, they're just looking at it as it is. So someone like me comes in and then I'm tying everything to that. What doesn't look like is money, I tie it to money. And then my CEO is always like, it's not like, what do we do? And all of that. So when you open my eyes, and I really, so I guess I'd always been, even my time at Deloitte with the smaller companies, but I never saw. But my eyes were now open. I started looking around, and I saw that that was the same problem. And some companies think that they just get an accountant, not a CFO, an accountant, and then they've solved that problem. And then they end up frustrated with the accountant. The accountant who does not even know what they are doing and all. So my CFO NG was set up to help small and mid-size. So if you're a big guy, as a my CFO NG really can help, because then there are people that are smarter, whatever, they've done MBA or whatever. And the bigger guys literally can put 3, 4, 5 people in to handle their receivables. Uh, they go for, so they go to still places like Deloitte or go to other whatever. You went to Harvard or you've worked at McKinsey. So all of us like that work in that space. By the time we work for a certain way, you don't work 6, 7, 8 years in that kind of space, and then you don't know what you are doing. So all of us and everybody's looking for like higher pay, progression, and things like that. So those big guys can afford to get the big guys or the most competent guys in our profession. The small guys can't. The smaller guys, even when I say mid-size can't. They can't afford. So ordinarily, a mid-size company cannot afford someone like me if I actually decide to go the way it's
Full
supposed to
time.
go full time. And because of that, there's now a gap. There's a gap for, so the guys that are coming up are guys that literally don't know what they're doing, or they have limited exposure, limited experience. So day to day are figuring things out, and then it causes a lot of frustration for these companies. So my CFO NG was actually set up, and I'm very honest. When I started it, I was very selfish. So all I thought was, you know what, I will be a virtual CFO for like 5 companies. The 5 companies will pay me like 500,000 naira a month, and then I get 2.5 million in my account for a month, and I'm
You're good for the
sorry about
month.
that, and I'm good, and I get my 30 million a year, blah blah blah, and lean staff and all of that. So that was a very selfish kind of thinking of myself
But
alone
then it
kind
was
of
value driven. It was
no.
value driven.
Was it? Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah,
had the
because
I had the value
yeah, you
proposition,
give
but
value to take value.
yeah, yeah. But when you think of the name of my CFO NG, it has to like mean more. So I just stumbled on the name anyway. Because I was going into that space, and actually had to also leave Tennessee at the time to pursue it. I know I didn't feel I could run both of them together. There are other things in the picture, but then I just decided, you know what, I was going to focus on my on running that. But eventually, what I realized is that this thing is bigger than me. If I'm looking to solve this widespread problem, we can't just have 5, 10, 15, 20 clients. There are literally 37 million small and mid-sized entities in Nigeria, at least documented. This is a widespread problem. But then, even if I create a firm that rivals Deloitte, even Deloitte and all of that, when look at their client list, they literally have to get a lot of big guys to cover the cost of small guys. So you can't just pack small guys. In fact, even to this point, I struggle to explain the value that they will get. So I have 16 years experience right now. I'm FCA, I'm FCCA, blah, blah, blah. And I'm talking to a business owner about why bookkeeping is important, blah, 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 how it will turn to. And the guy will be looking at me like,
Like
why am I speaking grammar?
jargon.
That has been in business for 20 years without proper bookkeeping. So why am I coming to tell him this now and stuff like that? So, or all those things are for the textbook, and so I actually get that, but we won't stop trying. So what we anyway, so what my CFO NG is doing now, what we realize is that the gap is not always necessarily the business owners. That's there, that won't go away, but it's in upskilling the accounting and finance guys coming up. So our textbooks, our learnings, they teach us a lot of things that I would say do not apply in real life, or they fail to make a connection between what we are doing in school or in our exams to how it helps a business. Because we have to remember that the guys, maybe not even your CEOs or MDs, the guys in operations department, marketing, they don't know all these things that we know, and frankly, they don't care. In fact,
That's the sad
and I'll
part.
give you, yeah,
That's
yeah,
the sad part, right?
it's
Like
sad, but
you
it's
don't
also good
know.
because you're there to fill in the gap. And I'll give you one quick example. I went somewhere where the MD CEO was hammering on the sales department or marketing, whatever you want to call them. And the guys that are supposed to get sales in, hammering on them that they are not selling enough and all of that they should go everywhere and flood the market with their product. So I was consulting there too as a CFO. And that then created a conflict because what they were now doing was that because the MD will say, you've not met target, you've not met target, you've not met target. So what's happening is our guys will just take the product and go and dump it somewhere and then say they've sold. And then, so what that means financially is that we have huge receivables, massive. And that's also because there's also now no structure to say, before we even give you credit, have we done our checks? Do you have a credit limit
Yes, it's
and
the
all of that?
background checks.
The background checks or whatever. What's even our policy? What's our credit policy? So MD is not thinking of that. MD is just like, go and sell, go and sell, go and sell. Now, marketing and sales sell all of those things, or literally, I don't even, in fact, from a finance guy, I don't even call it selling. They just, because you're making noise on their head, they just go and drop it to your place. And those ones are more like, well, I won't give you your money until I sell your products. And and if you're a finance guy, that's terrible for cash flow. But nobody's even thinking of that. So now the marketing sales guys, we sit down with them weekly meeting and they start to say, oh, we sold so million, we sold so million, and everybody is clapping. man, there's no cash. Like there's no cash, and we are all and I'm
You're
saying this
gonna
from a finance point. Like you don't just go and give people stuff. We need to profile them. We need to have credit limits. We need to do this. And then when the receivables are high, they start to shout at the finance guy. Why are you not collecting
yeah,
receivables? Why is your
yeah. They don't
receivable so
realize
high? Blah blah blah.
your
Literally have no
liquidity
idea when you
ratios.
even exactly. I literally have no idea when you went to sell these things. I know.
Hmm,
So all that gap is there. Those gap, and that's with me that's not even knowledgeable, even telling them no, you can't do that. But there are lots of accounting and finance that don't even know that the implications of every other thing that already. So their own is just like you went to sell, blah blah blah, debit receivable, credit, revenue, blah blah blah. Make the report. Like it doesn't help the business. Yes, the recording is good, but that's not anything critical or strategic or things like that. And I can tell you millions and millions of stories. I know. I mean, there's a common theme. So what my CFO NG is doing now is raising a lot more CFOs and finance business partners amongst our colleagues that don't actually, they were not lucky enough, so to speak, to actually be exposed or to have the experience of working in large firms. Because if those guys are actually well equipped, they start to help turn around our small businesses. Our small businesses are losing money, they're losing money, they're losing if some of the things that they are kind of like associating with being small and say we can't do this, we can't do that. I actually see things like no, it means that being small means you are agile. It means that you're flexible. It means that you can be fast. And I use this analogy. If you are going on the road, it's very easy to turn around a Lamborghini than to turn around a truck. So big companies most
exactly.
times are already set, structure, blah blah blah. So you don't need to have that structure, but at least it means that you are now very, very agile and all
Flexible.
of that, flexible and things like that. And those things don't mean that you lose money. And then if you even look around you, you will see lots of small businesses that are actually doing well. Like they're doing well, even if it's your mom and pop shop and all of that. But it's just a case of, at the end of the day, all of it is down to money, it's down to finance. And then, so, and I also say this thing very well that every single business on this planet, every single one has a CFO. And then some people are like, what do you mean I don't have a CFO? I'm like, well, you might not necessarily call the person a CFO, but every single business has somebody making decisions about money. So it could be the business owner or CEO themselves deciding they don't need to get a professional, that they will handle money themselves. It's fine. But they would not do it the same way that I or anybody that has been trained
As
to
a
connect
professional.
finance to business to do it. And then if some owners have accountants and then they try them one or two things and the accountant can't even go beyond recording and things like that, and then they decide, you know what, accountants are all the same, they are useless and all. So we're really about empowering a lot of young accountants, finance professionals. So I'm always careful not to just limit it to accountants, but it usually
Uh,
starts from there. It usually starts from, it really starts, like if you don't know accounting, I don't know what you're doing in finance, but accounting is not finance. It's like a very small subset, to be honest. But the
okay
accounting
now.
is the information that you use for things like budgeting, forecasting, investment decisions. Like if you get your accounting wrong, if you put debit in the wrong place, credit in the wrong place, all of that, and then you start to use it to make any decisions, the decisions will be flawed. So that's why I like to start from accounting. But then realizing that finance is way bigger, and then that's usually the disconnect because the business speaks finance, the business doesn't speak accounting. So if you're going to talk as an accountant to any other person, not just the CEO, any other person in your business, don't talk accounting to them. Don't tell them depreciation. Don't tell them IFRS 15. Don't. You know that they don't know that, and even
They're not
before you knew
interested in
it,
it.
you know how long it took you. You didn't just learn it in one day. So you can't go to someone and then you're having the discussion and you're saying IS2 said blah blah blah, IFRS 15 said this blah blah blah.
Who
Like
cares?
who cares? What are you saying? So a lot of people are stuck in that space, and that's what we are trying to. That's the gap we're trying to close.
Wow, interesting. So I see on your LinkedIn profile, you're on a mission to raise 1,000 TFOs and FBPs. So, like,
One
how far have
million.
you? Oh, 1 million. Wow.
1
1 million
million.
CFOs and FBPs. And, like, how far have
Yeah.
you gone on that journey? And I think we've been saying CFO, and then now
Yes.
FBP. Like, to the layman, please tell us what, this is about.
All right. So, CFO is Chief Finance Officer, Chief Financial Officer. So that's you have the overall responsibility for finance in a business. Simple as that. Finance business partner is more or less like a step below. And big companies have finance business partners now. I'm just trying to bring it into smaller businesses. So a finance business partner is somebody that, and it's all in the name, that partners the business with finance. That's as simple as it gets. So I believe that in like I also like which takes you back to the what I said, that every single business has a CFO. So you have a small business and you need to be able to trust that an accounting and finance professional can actually handle the financial matters in your business. So that person might not necessarily have a title of a CFO, but they will play the role of a CFO. So that's why I believe that we can raise 1 million. I mean, we have, like I said, we have 37 million small businesses in Nigeria. And I mean, even get higher when it start to add mid-size and all of that.
So the journey of raising
And
this 1 million, like how far, like would you
yeah,
say you've gone? Like what number? What's the guesstimates right now on the number?
uh, to be safe, I would say I haven't taken stock yet, but we're just getting.
Uh accountants are terrible people.
No, no. In fact, that's the businessman side of it, not even the accountant part.
uh,
But this is what I'm going to
okay.
say. We're just getting started, actually. We're just getting started, especially
Oh, wow.
changing the model from a service based one to a knowledge based one. So, for instance, I have LinkedIn posts. I post, so my social media for now is just LinkedIn only. And I share nuggets and things like that relating to how so I write for two audiences primarily. One is to businesses to understand how finances better for them, and two is to up and coming accountants. And sometimes, so there's an intersection, especially for up and coming accountants. So when I write to businesses and say you must do this, young accountants look at it and say, okay, yeah, I can. They can take what I've said from what I've written there and go and
Mhm.
apply it in their own business, because I can't like literally reach all business owners. So I get feedback from people to say that, oh, they saw that post, blah blah blah, and then they used it to do so. So which is what I like about the reach. So based on my reach right now, people are actually taking my content, my ideas, and all of that, and using it to improve their businesses where they are working, as in moving from accountants to finance business partners, and even to the CFO tag. And so I would say, so things like that, I won't be able to quantify that, but that's
Mhm.
there, and that's the intention. So yes, we must eat somehow, but the intention is not to monetize the entire process of saying, oh, you're coming into the space, we've trained you, or we've got jobs for you. It's just to make that awareness like out there, that yes, you might have trained as an accountant, but you can be more. You can be a FBP, you can be a CFO. And if it's only by listening or reading my content or listening to the podcast that we have, that's going to happen, that's fine. But then if you also want something much more curated, you can reach out to us. So what we're doing is actually selling knowledge. Like we have the entire package of how you get to a CFO. So we're just starting. We're just getting started in that space. A CFO Academy is coming up in 2024. We do lots of corporate trainings. I had master classes last year. There are going to be there are going to be more master classes. My name is last year, this year, 2023. Sorry, there are going to be more master classes, boot camps, and all of that. So, and a few things have also changed in the makeup. So when I started my CFO NG, it was just me, and I mean I was consulting with a few people, but now I have more partners. So we're looking at getting more to get the reach out there. So 2024 is actually a year that, I mean, come back to me at the end of 2024, then I can give you stock of, okay, at least directly, this is what we've done. I know.
Would have
So
done the inventory
there's
counts.
if you done the inventory count, exactly. So
Yeah.
there's a massive potential, and I do talk to a lot of business owners, and they tell me, so when we have coaching, they tell me a lot of the concerns that they have, and sometimes in that space they just wish I can come in and then come and do some work for them, but then the truth is I have my hourly rate, and then I can come in, so I can actually even come in and then do something for 1 2 months, but after that, what happens? Because you can't afford to keep me full time. Even if they call you Ademola now, at some point, I mean, you have bills, you have all of that. Like, you rather work in a place that you do.
Yeah,
I
the
know
structure and
exactly. There's
continuity.
structure, exactly, and continuity and all of that. So sometimes if you work for these smaller guys, you're taking a risk. I know, but they tell me all these things, and then we realize that yeah, there are people, accounting would always be in style. I mean, see the number of people that were inducted and all of that. So it's just once we empower those guys, our guys coming up, I actually, the end goal is actually economic development. It might not seem like it, but it is, because a company is as good as its financial processes. A lot of people disagree, but once you understand that the point of business is money, the point of business is finance. If somebody says they are a businessman, they are talking about movement of money, how the money comes in, whatever they are selling, they're talking about money. Even if you're not for profit, you still need money to do anything you need to do. So if if people understand that, and then they can strengthen their financial processes even in their little space, then look at the collective, the aggregation of all of that, and look at how it can impact our economy. A lot of people would not do very big things, and it doesn't mean they are not successful. They are okay in their space. There are people that are just literally covering a what I would call a catchment area, like a plumber or something. You
Like a
don't even need to
marketplace.
be on the exactly. You just need to maybe be a plumber servicing one estate in Magodo only. That's all you're doing. You don't even need to be on LinkedIn. You don't need to be on anywhere. You don't need to get clients from all over the world. Like, you're just in that space. But meanwhile, you're running your business and you're running it professionally, and then you have somebody that can actually give you sound financial advice on running your business and maximizing your profits, maximizing everything, whereby that's your small space, you're actually doing a lot. And then just look at the multiplier effect of all of that, and we have people in accounting and in finance that can help. So definitely, I see growth in this space. I see the gaps. I see growth, and sometimes it feels like I'm talking about small only, but even mid-sized companies in Nigeria to have the same problem. They have
SMEs.
that SME, so that's why we just say SMEs. And when I say mid-size, like literally your revenue could be 6 billion in a year, 6 billion in naira, and you're still mid-sized. I mean, because once you compare it to, say, MTN made 2 trillion naira last year. I mean, those are massive. Dangote made trillions, Nigerian breweries billions, and so people are making 200, 300, 600 billion. So those are large,
Those are the
and
biggies.
big, yeah, exactly. And once and beyond the money, the first thing you notice about them, because I work with most of them, is structure. There's that structure that turns out. It just so it's like they're printing money. They churn out they're just churning out. So there's product, there's everything relates. So smaller guys just believe that some things are not important, but we're here to tell them that they are equally as important, irrespective of your size. So I'm excited about this, and then definitely, if I don't get to 1 million, even if I only raise 10 people, which I think is going more than. But if I raise 10 people and those 10 people find fulfillment in saying that, yeah, Ajibola and my CFO NG help them progress in their career to that point, then I actually will be fulfilled myself.
Nice one. It's more about the impact than the
Yeah.
numbers, right? Quality over
Yes.
quantity. Wow,
Yeah.
interesting. Because as
We
accountants, a
need the
lot of us
quantity though, but yeah.
we tend to be
We,
focused on
we start
quantity.
with volume. We start with the value and then volume I think volume will follow.
We will
Actually, I'm confident
follow
that volume will
automatically.
follow. Yes.
Automatically, definitely. So you mentioned that you provide advice to both the SMEs and of course individuals, right? But then what
Yes.
would you say are like your top five sound financial management tips for making SMEs right successful?
Ah. So I saw the question earlier, and again, somebody has asked me. So most of it is I don't want to be too generic. So I'm going to give you just one, or I'm going to give all of them just one,
Okay.
and that's fundamental. Every other thing will be on a case by case basis. So that one is called discipline, financial discipline. So SMEs are notorious. So a lot of reason why SMEs don't want structure, even though they know they need it, is so that they can be disciplined with how. And so you can set up all the controls and processes in the world. And as an auditor, you know what they say about management override of control.
We do that.
Exactly. So that's the reality with SMEs. You set up everything and then this, and then at the first sign of inconvenience, so to speak, you as the person that set it up, you override
To override the
everything.
controls.
You override the controls. And then because you can literally do whatever you want. So that's the fundamental problem that I would say 95% of them have. Because you are the
Mm.
owner, you can do whatever you want, or you are at the top, you can do whatever you want, and then you're not accountable to a board or whatever. Or even if you set up a board and you are like 100% shareholder, they will talk what they want to talk. But so how much more if you have a board, and how much more Ajibola comes with and says, as a finance guy, you must do this, you must do this, you must do that, blah blah blah. If at the first sign of you know, I mean, and some of these things are basic. So financial success, right from early days, there's a set of principles. You put this, you do this, you do this, you do this, and it takes time. It's patience. You don't rush it. And then you have guys just be like, you know what, this deal, you must close, blah 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 blah. The good, do, and then bypass all the signatures or try to get a contract so that before we do this, like they just forget all of that and be like, and if you're an accountant in those places and the MD says do this and you're asking the MD, but we need to set this up, and the guy was like, who employed who? Blah blah blah. I said you should do it, go and do it, blah blah blah. And that's the reality of so many people. That's their
Override.
reality. Exactly. They can't talk back. I
Mm.
mean, they don't have another job yet. They can't challenge. They can't say anything. MD wants it like this. That's the reality. So SMEs require discipline. Once you have discipline, especially financial discipline, like every other tip around things like, maybe I would just mention it about things like structure, segregation of duties, lean processes, automation, all those things come into place. But the truth is, if you do all those things, you put automation and say, oh, this must go here to go here to go here, and then the first sign of something needs to happen, the MD says, no, 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 don't delay my customer, blah blah blah. Yeah, I will sign manually, blah blah blah, and then everything that they've spent money on just goes down the window. And once the tone at the top says that that thing is not as important, or we can sideline it when it doesn't serve us. When once they say that, everybody working in the firm just then knows that yeah, that thing is not important. So I would just put it down to discipline,
Mm,
and it's very hard
interesting.
actually.
So,
It's very very hard.
wow, wow. It's difficult, right? But then once that discipline is actually instituted, right? Especially the tone
Yeah,
at the top, it follows,
yeah. It
to
just
the
yeah
rest of
yeah
the organization. So we've actually spoken
yeah
about organizations, right? So how about
yes.
individuals? Like, what financial advice would you give to the younger generation? Because we are finance professionals, and you would know that even as finance professionals, a lot of individuals, right, we know how to advise companies on some financial practices and all. But then there was a post that was trending recently on Twitter, right, which is now
Mm,
X, saying,
mm,
"Oh, a lot of the people in the Big Four are always broke. I don't know what is their
mm.
problem." So I don't know if you saw that thing. Like,
No,
oh,
I didn't
like
see it,
even
but I can
the person was
relate.
like, even their managers are broke. And then it came to me like, yeah, a lot. That's actually true. Like a lot of finance professionals
Mm,
have poor personal finances, not because they don't even earn much, but
mm,
because they don't manage their finances properly as well.
yeah.
So, like, what advice would you give to the younger generation of professionals, individuals?
All right. No, so so first off, it's literally discipline. Discipline. So whether it's personal finance or corporate finance, it's literally it comes down to discipline because money coming in, for the most part, you have no control over it. I mean, there are nuances to that. As some people say, it's whatever you do that brings money in. But let's just say, for argument's sake, you have, especially if you have a steady job, just show up month on month, your salary comes in. But money going out, definitely you have control over that. And none of it is easy, especially with rising bills and all of that. But whatever takes money out of your wallet or your bank account is as a result of the decisions you're taking. So, for instance, you could decide to live on, if you live in Lagos, you could decide to live on the island as opposed to the mainland. That decision or where to live impacts what your rent is, impacts even cost of living. Maybe things are more expensive on the island. I know. So in itself, it doesn't seem like a financial decision where to live, but it is. So you can then decide that, you know what, with this my income, so percent must go to rent, maybe 30% or 40%, and then you start to say what bracket of area can I live comfortably with this. And the other part of the discipline still rings true. Money going out, deciding to spend or splurge or whatever, knowing that another income is coming, is common amongst people. So whether you're a finance professional or not, it's very, very easy to become not to have discipline around finances, especially when you have a steady source of income. So I'm going to say discipline one. And So what's funny is I actually had a discussion, a speaking event with the Project Management Institute of Nigeria sometime about 2, 3 months ago. And the topic was how corporate finance and personal finance are the same. So that's one of the mantras I have. For me, they are literally the same thing. Companies have assets, humans have assets. Companies have liabilities, human beings have liabilities. So no matter how you want to take it, revenue for companies, salary for individuals, or if they are doing other things, expenses, universal, things like that. It's just that we almost don't prepare financial statements of our lives as individuals. net worth of an individual, it's their assets minus their liabilities. That's same as net assets in a company, and you actually use it to determine the worth of a company. So you could say net worth is the same thing. So when you think about it that way, so my advice was that if you know that, you can start to plan your life like a, the companies that you like, strong companies. You can plan your life and your finances around what kind of assets do I want to have? What kind of liabilities do I want to have? My revenue, is it just from one source or multiple sources? How do I manage my expenses? If I take a loan, if I incur debt, am I using it to finance an asset? Or am I using it to finance operations? There's a big difference, because you take money to you take a loan to pay rent. The money that you would use to pay the loan will come from your revenue that probably you already had, like not increasing and all. But you take a loan to buy an asset that then generates additional revenue, that then generates the cash that you use to pay the loan. You see that there's a difference there, and that's how
Mhm.
companies actually do it. Most of them
Correct as
don't,
well.
except for a small overdraft, whatever. But if they take a loan, a proper loan, they're using it to finance assets. In fact, and they do leverage. That's what we call leverage. They leverage the assets, blah blah blah. So if anything goes wrong, they can't pay back the loan. Oh yeah, come and take the assets, use it to pay the loan. But then if people start to take loans, use it for operational stuff or use it to fund their lifestyle, so to speak, and their revenue is not increasing, their revenue is still the same source it was. I know. So my advice is people start to think about this in that line. Like, think of yourself as not just yourself, as a company, and then start to make decisions in that line. So there's this funny one, just to round up. There's this funny thing around assets, fixed assets and current assets, and even cash. I know. So you go to somebody's house, they have this big plasma TV, they have a fridge, they have this in their house, they have a big bed, what a nice furniture, blah blah blah. But it's possible they don't have cash. But if people say, they'll be like, yeah, you have all these assets, even if they do the net worth and all of that, like all these are your assets. I mean, it's literally property, plant and equipment. These are your property. But it doesn't mean that if you need cash, you start to sell. You'll be like, I'm broke on cash. The day you decide to sell your fridge, you're going to get a lot less
The value for it.
than less value for it, because well, who just decides to hop and sell their fridge. So once you start thinking about that, you can then decide on the type of assets you want to have. So investments are an asset, and then they can easily convert to cash. And so just be like, okay, maybe a little less, more material stuff. Maybe I just have enough that's comfortable for me to get by, and then more investment, because
Liquidity.
investment generates returns. I know, but typically your TV, your fridge, and all of those things don't generate money. But then someone can look at you and be like, you have access. So you've taken your revenue or wherever you get the money from, you've used it to buy things, and then those things are technically assets. You own them, and somebody will tell you that, don't worry, it's worth this amount, and then but then the truth is they are not revenue generating assets, and
Mm.
then and things like that. So once people start to think like and it's very easy to get financial education nowadays, even if you're not in finance, go on YouTube or whatever, get financial education, and then look at the biggest companies in the world. They are mostly public, McDonald's, Amazon, blah blah blah. So you can even see their financials. You can, and they must have management commentary. So if I do that a lot, I just be like, okay, because you're not just looking at numbers you're putting. You're not just saying revenue is 1 billion or whatever. They're also explaining, this is what we're thinking. This is what we did. So I just do that and now apply that personally, and then it works as well.
Interesting. So, on the list of questions we have one, it says, what's your take on the financial ecosystem in Nigeria? and like what can be done to achieve financial inclusion?
So that's a tough one. Again, it's one of the ones I saw, and I was hoping you wouldn't ask.
Ah, wow,
And it's because I, I I honestly don't have an answer, or I don't have what I would call an intelligent answer to it. Because, and why I would say that is economics. And you read economics. I can't teach you economics. Uh, there's a way things are supposed to work,
Mhm.
as in from studies. And I think in Nigeria in particular, everything is just flipped.
That's
Everything,
it. That's
everything
that's very
is.
true.
I think everything is flipped. It doesn't just work that way. So, because again, what's financial inclusion? Is it that everybody should be digitally captured, or
Basically,
is it,
that's about like
or
having people use financial institutions, right? So you see that there's a lot of our economy in Nigeria that is outside of the financial institutions, outside of the banks, right?
yeah?
After outside, yeah. So basically, how do we
No,
bring
I get
the
that. I get
SMEs
that.
using these
Yeah.
things? Yeah,
So
for the layman watching
yeah, okay,
us
yeah. No,
in
I
this
know, I get
discussion.
that. No, yeah, I get that. No, so what I was trying to say was that what does bringing them in do for them? So, for instance, you go to Alaba area and that huge electronics, whatever, and yes, it's a very large informal market, and they're moving billions and billions of naira. We want them to come through the banks, blah, blah, blah. And all they are hearing, and they're fine where they are. They're literally fine. They like you. What's the benefit to them? Because now you bring them, you include them, blah blah blah. Then you're talking about BVN. Before you know it, FIRS and whatever. It's now in their case. If literally you want to take the food out of their mouth, and then you can now monitor what's going on with them, and they don't want that because they are good where they are in that space. And I don't even really feel that some people, the inclusion is their problem because we don't want to create a problem where there is none. So the inclusion, whether they are included or not. So the fact is that nobody is excluded. Let's start with that. Nobody is excluded. There's no mechanism that excludes anybody right now. So everybody has a right to be included. So the people that are excluded are not necessarily, there's a barrier to them.
It's a
And,
voluntary
and
exclusion.
exactly, there's no barrier. Like, what's stopping you from being included? And is it that the technology is not enough or things like that? So what I would say overall, like I said, I don't have an intelligent answer, but what I'm going to say overall is that we need to think beyond fintechs just coming up, and then all they are doing are giving loans. And I know they do more than that, but most of them are giving loans um, and giving loans without real KYC or whatever, giving loans and payment solutions, things like that. Because the farmer in Kebbi and all of that doesn't care. In fact, give the person cash. The person doesn't need all of that. So what we need investment in is things around that just helps the economy grow. So we need investment more in agriculture, in health, in education. So a lot of money is going into fintechs and that are pretty much doing the same thing. And everybody is saying the same thing, in my opinion. Financial inclusion. You want to bring more people in, you want to bring more. So we are using tech to bring more people in. But the thing is that how is it bettering the lives of those people you want to bring in? And we need to really talk about what's really impacting them. It's not financial inclusion that's impacting them. the farmer wants to grow more. They want to have good health. They want their kids to go to school. Lots of social things that we can really address than just
That
like
that that,
getting
that
another
than just
guy.
the,
Exactly,
the
that
the
just getting
financial
another
inclusion.
set of guys just announcing to some of us that they've raised another $100 million to blah blah blah. And yeah, to be honest, it just still covers it's just a small subset of people.
Interesting, interesting. If we were actually going to talk about the issues of Nigeria, it would be that's another podcast on its own. So,
Yeah, I
really,
know,
like,
right?
what advice did you have for the younger generation in terms of overcoming imposter syndrome?
Uh, so that would be easier if I'd even overcome it myself. But
Oh,
so
interesting.
so no
So,
I mean I would
ordinary
just
people doing
say
extraordinary things.
so I would say it gets easier to manage, but it never leaves. And I see people, or I've heard of people, even that I would say that much smarter and more brilliant than I am. Even me saying that is a form of imposter syndrome, but I've seen people say things like that and say, you know what, they never really get over it. So there are acts. So for instance, like Beyonce said that she created this Sasha Fierce alter ego. And in fact, most of this, even if you're into hip hop, and even Eminem, he enters into Slim Shady. So people just literally create
And alter
an alter
ego.
ego of themselves, and then in that version of themselves, they are not themselves. They are a different person, and they give that person the license to really be bold and brave. And then when they are in that space, they literally can say or do anything. So that's a hack that I feel can work. But um, just a side story, and I'll try to make it brief. So so my profile has I'm a fellow of ICANN. I'm a fellow of ACCA. I worked in a big four in Nigeria and the US. Uh, I've been CFO of two companies. I've set up my business and so you can imagine that if I package my CV right now, a lot of people would be like, wow, that guy. Ah, like if even if my CV could be a half of what he has done, that's like that would be massive. And then you can imagine, and it has really happened to me, it's not even like a joke. You can imagine that somehow at some point I applied for a job and I dropped my CV and someone looked at it and be like, why are you giving me this nonsense? Like, we're talking about people that have done this. You're giving me this guy's CV. So things like that can actually start to really be like, should I even be here? Or you start to doubt everything you've done. And then you're looking at what more can you do? And then you just lose sight of this. Or another example is when you just look at somebody else and just be like, okay, I've not done up to 1% of that. So those things are really affected. So the the main thing I would say is for anybody, and again, maybe I'll probably take my own advice, is just always calm down, take a breath, and just focus on your own achievements. So, like in my own case now, being a fellow of ICANN is not a joke. Like, not it's not a joke at all. Even before fellowship, even being an associate, it's not. There's a lot of sacrifice. It's not just passing exams. It's all those sleepless nights in tuition houses, sacrificing weekends, and all of that. And then you literally still have to pass the exams. And then once you pass the exams, you don't automatically get the certification. You must work, is it 3 years, the six
The three
months,
years.
or exactly. And in that space, you're not just sitting around counting time, waiting to get your certificate. You're actually working, making an impact. So, and that's my example. So my advice is people like just realize that whatever you are doing or whatever you've done, it wasn't by luck. There was some effort into it. There were blood, there was sweat, there are tears involved in that, and always like be grateful for that. Also know that yes, there's always something much more to conquer, but then whatever you've conquered, it's your own, and then own it. I think that that would help a lot.
Yeah, fantastic. You always have to own it. So speaking of owning it, right? Like, what accomplishments would you
Yeah.
say you're most proud of in your life and your career as a person?
Uh, so that's a tough one. I mean, because it has been been a lot. I can't even I can't pick one. Okay, let me pick one just for picking sake. It would be while I was in the US. I was in so this would be in 2014, late 2014. I got an outstanding performance award from my Deloitte partners. So why it was so important to me was the fact that again, I think I was dealing with some sort of imposter syndrome too as well. So I'd left Nigeria. I was doing well in Nigeria, then went to the US, and in my head, it was in my head, I was already feeling inferior. Like this is the US. Like so everything you've been doing in Nigeria, yeah, is small compared to what's happening here in the US. But as I decided to lean into what I knew how to do and learning more. So learning is very important. You don't just be stagnant. So I started to learn more and all of that. Before you know it, I was actually now very good and very valuable because I didn't really stop what I was doing before, where I was getting promotions in Nigeria. And even on secondment is kind of like a promotion because everybody wants to go to the US. Then the company now deciding to sponsor you to go as is a big jump for your career. So things like that already showed I was already on the path. But when I got into the US, I kind of like struggled a bit with just in my head. And but after a while, like just so anyway, the combination of all of that was that the partners now recognizing that okay, yeah, this guy is actually good. So it kind of like validated. It gave me some sort of validation and a vindication that okay, yeah, I was doing something good. So that award actually means a lot, meant a lot to me. But over the course
It
of my
should.
career, like I literally, I think it's they say this count your blessings one by one. I literally have to count one achievement, at least one achievement every single year. As that keeps me going.
That's a great
I
one.
can't be in 20, yeah, I can't be in 2023, 2024, and then I'm thinking about the performance award I got in 2014. Like,
Yeah, but
nah,
then it's
move
always
on.
a sweet spot, you know. It's a sweet spot. There's always that, you know, sweet achievement that you have that propels you going forward. It's that's like a base. So it's not like, oh, that's like the biggest thing, but then it meant a lot to you as a
No,
person and
no. I mean, I get
motivated
you.
you going
Yeah, I
forward.
get you. But it was in the context of the question. So I just had to pick one. So for me,
Uh,
if I'm going to be more realistic, then it would be my most recent because my most recent one is at the point now the most fulfilling one.
that is
But
recency bias.
it's recency bias. That's it. So I've done that one at that time. It's gone. The next thing, do it. The next thing, the next thing, the next thing. I know. Yeah, but recency bias is really a thing.
Yeah, it's a real thing, right? So
Yeah.
you talk about learning a lot. Like, what book would you recommend, you know, for the audience to succeed in business and in life generally?
I wouldn't recommend a book. What I
Uh,
just what I would just recommend is just stay open to learning.
hmm,
So I can't even
interesting.
credit any single book myself. But so uh again, you realize that most of my questions or most of my answers come with a context instead of
Mhm.
a straight whatever. So for me, for a long time I had my YouTube and the only thing I watched with it was YouTube was music videos. Like I watch music videos. That's Vivo and all of that. Then after a while, I don't know where it just changed, and I just decided to curate. I don't know what happened, but it just happened that I just started to create in Nigeria. Like that YouTube is a trove of knowledge, like massive knowledge. So now if you see my YouTube now, it's curated with a lot of business strategy. I still learn Excel.
How
I
to
thought how to. Yes, okay, okay. So I know how it happened. This how to exactly. So thank you for bringing back. So I know how it happened. So I realized at some point when I wanted to do, if I was stuck at work or stuck with something at work, the first thing I do is I go on Google and say, how do I, blah, 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 how do I? And for me, that's still learning. A brilliant person is not somebody that just has everything in their head. I think a brilliant person is someone that knows where to go when they have
Mhm.
issues or just whatever, but don't just put everything. So personally, I used to be very proud that I know all the IFRSs and all of that in my head. But now it's like that's not necessary. If you ask me and I don't need to know, I know where to go.
you have
At
to
least
get the information.
where to get information. And what's more important, what's most important is I can go in there and I can once I read it, I can understand what is being said, and then we can have a conversation. So I used to do the how to, and then once you do the how to, what it does is that it takes you to the videos, and the videos because Google and YouTube are literally the same business. And from there, I just now realized that YouTube had a trove of knowledge. So my YouTube is now lots of how to this, business strategy. Blah, blah, blah. In fact, my website, my CFO NG, I created it myself. It's something I don't say. I mean, because I feel like
Oh,
I feel like if like a professional web developer just say like, yeah, we can tell that it was a professional that did it. But to a layman, I mean, I've gotten compliments like, your website look professional. I literally just went on YouTube and I watched a tutorial on how to create a WordPress website, and it took me 3 weeks. So as I was learning, I was executing. I would pause. I would do that. Pause. Do that. Blah blah blah. And I created my myCFOng.com. As you can see, it was all done by me. I didn't outsource it to anyone. Yes, it will have some gaps and things like that. Anyway, although they advertise it more like, yeah, you can do it yourself, but you get the idea. So that for me, that's learning. So for everybody else, is it might not be YouTube. It's just a case of just the mindset of staying open to learn, and then more importantly, using what you learn is the most important thing I would say anybody should have.
hmm. Interesting. So basically, speaking of you learning all right, are there like skills or competences that you have or people do not know about, but you're quite proud of?
Ah, that would be outside of finance.
Yeah, yeah, definitely outside of finance. Like for me, for example, I'm a great
Yeah.
chef. I can chef it up. I know how to cook really well. But at some point, people did not really know about that. But over time, like recently, I started showing that off. So, like, really, what is it for you that, yeah, it's private. You know how to do this thing really well, but people don't know about it.
I I want to say, and it's just gonna go down to my hobby anyway. So I want to say I'm extremely skilled at FIFA.
Oh, wow.
On I want to say that, and that's because when I play with people around, like I'm literally the top dog, and I've been
Wow.
playing since I was a kid. And but when I go online and people around the world, like they show me Pepe, so I didn't even so sometimes I don't even know how good I am or things like that. I don't know. Usually when I relax. So I actually feel, to be honest, I actually feel that if I went into esports, so not just FIFA, but just like if I went into esports, like I won't be average. I will be above average.
Mm.
You know?
Oh, interesting. Interesting. That's a nice one. That's a nice one. So basically, towards the end of the pod, we have a tradition on the podcast, right? So you have a question from
Yeah,
the previous guest, and of
yeah.
course, you would have to drop a question for the next guest. So the question from the
All right.
previous guest is, how would you free people from the poverty that they experience in their minds?
So that was that Nancy dropped that.
Yes, Nancy dropped that. And interestingly, you saw the you saw
Yeah, yeah. Uh, how would I? So is it like if I had superpowers or something? Because that's actually a very difficult one. I mean, you can always tell people whatever you want to tell them, but it's up to them to take advice. So I try. I almost don't give advice except you really come to me and say, "Help me with this." I know. But anyway, poverty of mind generally as a concept is one where you feel like you don't have options. So you settle for the first lowest hanging fruit. So a simple answer to that is have an abundance mindset. An abundance mindset, like the world is vast, the resources of the world are vast, they're limitless. Some people say they are limited, but I think they're at least for a person, they are limitless. So change your mindset, understand that yes, you might be in a situation right now, but that's not the only situation. So that situation can limit you into thinking um in a certain way, and before you know it, your mind is closed. So as you can tell from some of the few of my other answers, you need your mind to be open. Once your mind is open, then you see possibilities everywhere. And once you see possibilities everywhere, then there's an abundance mindset. So I generally don't worry about maybe I'm doing something and I'm going to lose my job or something like so because I just be like, yeah, one door closes, another opens, things like that. So in that way I can then be like where we started, I started with being very shy. But now I'm actually bold enough to speak my mind to certain people because I understand that you've not limited me and I've not limited myself to saying if it doesn't work this way, then there's no other way it can work. So for anybody that's having poverty of the mind and all that, it's just it well, I won't say just it's simple or I they say it's easy but not simple. But it's just realize that there's so much in the world, there's so much abundance in the world, and it's just once you open your mind, have an abundance mindset, you start to see them and then you take advantage of them. And then once you are rich in the mind, every other thing is
Interesting. So what question are you going to leave for the next guest?
so I didn't really think it through. I didn't really think it through, but it's a good thing I also have a podcast as well. So I'm just going to take from what question one of
All
the
of that.
guests
So
actually left, and is so for the next guest is what are you doing to impact the next generation? Yeah, if the person says what are you doing to impact the next generation of accountants, so I'm just going to leave that. What are you doing to impact the next
the next
generation?
generation. Oh wow,
Yes.
interesting. So the next guest has like work cut out for them. Wow, it's been a really, really long and insightful conversation today. I know we've eaten a
Fine.
lot into your very busy schedule. Thank you very
Oh no,
much,
I'm
sir, for being on the
actually
Kick Games
happy to be
podcast.
here. Yeah, I'm actually to be here today, and it's actually the holidays, so it wasn't really much of an inconvenience to speak with you today.
Okay, thank you very much. Your time is highly, highly appreciated.
You're welcome.
Okay. So okay, do you want to give a shout out to anybody? Yeah, because the last guest I gave them an opportunity to give a shout out to somebody. So who would you like to give a shout out to before we uh
Uh,
wrap up?
uh I mean, it just goes back to the start, but they probably won't watch it. So maybe my wife will watch it. But then it goes back to the start. Just my family, just my family,
Okay.
and I know. I mean, we're all in the same space, but sometimes maybe sometime in the future, my daughter would see this, and then maybe this can be like a time capsule for her. Be like, that's daddy. I know. So maybe I'll shout out to my kids and let
Okay.
them know that daddy was here.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much, sir, once again.
You're welcome.
And God bless you. We're wishing you the very best in your of all of your endeavors.
Thank you.
We would love to see, my CFO NG scale up into a global giant, and of course, you becoming a globally recognized name. God bless you, sir.
That's it. That's the dream. In fact, that's why I left the NG in the stuff. So let everybody know it's from Nigeria to the world.
Wow, Niger to the world. Okay, from me, it's peace. God bless everyone. Bye.